Before we begin, take a second to support the channel. If you appreciate deep stories that uncover the hidden truths behind Hollywood legends, tap the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. It helps more than you realize and allows us to keep bringing you stories most people are afraid to tell. Now, let's talk about Sam Elliott. For decades, Sam Elliott stood apart in Hollywood, not because he demanded attention, but because he refused to chase it. He built a career on restraint, silence, and an unspoken sense of honor that felt increasingly rare as time passed. His voice carried weight not because it was loud, but because it was careful. To audiences, he represented something solid and dependable, a man carved from older values. But behind that calm exterior lived something few ever noticed, a growing sadness shaped by watching the world he loved slowly transform. Sam never feared criticism or box office failure. What truly wounded him was watching people he once respected abandon the principles that define the American West. Over time, those disappointments hardened into something deeper, something personal. And when Sam finally allowed himself to speak, it became clear that there were a few names tied to wounds that never truly healed. Sam Elliott always believed that a cowboy was more than a costume or a role. To him, it was a code, a way of carrying yourself without spectacle or self-promotion. Cowboys didn't beg for applause. They didn't turn tradition into theater. They acted, then disappeared back into the dust. That belief shaped every decision Sam made throughout his career, from the roles he accepted to the way he behaved off-screen. So when Clint Eastwood stepped onto the stage at the Republican National Convention in 2012, something inside Sam quietly shifted. Watching from Texas, surrounded by people who still viewed Eastwood as a symbol of the West, Sam didn't react outwardly. There was no anger, no laughter, no commentary, just silence. The empty chair, the exaggerated performance, the political spectacle, it felt wrong to him on a level that went far beyond politics. In that moment, Sam didn't see a bold statement. He saw a man using the cowboy image for attention. When the internet turned it into a joke, Sam wasn't offended by the mockery. What hurt was the choice. Eastwood had crossed an invisible line, turning grit into performance, restraint into theater. And to Sam, that was unforgivable. What deepened the fracture wasn't just the event itself, but Clint Eastwood's reaction afterward. When asked about the backlash, Eastwood brushed it off, suggesting people were simply too sensitive. To Sam Elliott, that response revealed everything. Accountability mattered to him. Humility mattered. And hearing someone he once admired dismiss criticism so casually felt like watching a hero drift into ego. Sam later confided to a close friend that Eastwood had begun to resemble the characters he played rather than the man he once was. Hardened, unbending, convinced of his own righteousness. The quiet dignity Sam associated with the cowboy myth had been replaced by certainty without reflection. That moment didn't spark public feuds or angry interviews. Sam didn't believe in that. Instead, it marked a private ending. Clint Eastwood, once a pillar of the Western tradition, became a symbol of betrayal. Not because of politics, but because he violated the unwritten rules Sam had lived by his entire life. From that day on, Eastwood represented something broken, proof that even legends could abandon the values that made them meaningful. If Eastwood's actions felt like a public betrayal, Robert Redford's impact on Sam Elliott was far quieter and far more painful. Early in his career, Sam admired Redford deeply. Redford represented intelligence, integrity, and purpose. He wasn't just a movie star. He was a thinker, an advocate, a man who seemed committed to protecting art and the environment. Sundance, in particular, symbolized everything Sam believed Hollywood needed, a place where authenticity mattered more than profit. But as years passed, Sam began to notice a widening gap between the image Redford projected and the reality unfolding around him. Sundance slowly transformed from a rebellious haven into a corporate playground. Studio deals, luxury branding, celebrity appearances, all of it felt like the very machine the festival was meant to resist. Walking through Park City during festival season no longer felt inspiring to Sam. It felt staged, polished, distant. The spirit that once gave young filmmakers a voice seemed buried beneath sponsorship banners and exclusive parties. What troubled Sam most wasn't hypocrisy, it was separation. Redford spoke passionately about simplicity, environmental responsibility, and living closer to the land. Yet reports surfaced revealing expansive estates, luxury properties, and a lifestyle far removed from the ideals he promoted. To Sam, this wasn't about money. It was about credibility. Hollywood loved moral branding, and Redford had become its most elegant symbol. In private conversations, Sam expressed sadness rather than anger. He felt the man he once admired had drifted into a role, one that looked good on camera but felt hollow beneath the surface. At a post-Oscar event in 2017, Sam entered a room, noticed Redford speaking animatedly nearby, and quietly turned around and left. No confrontation, no bitterness, just acceptance. A producer watching described it as heartbreak, not hostility. For Sam, Redford wasn't a villain. He was a reminder of how easily good intentions could become comfortable illusions. Kevin Costner represented something entirely different, not disappointment, not betrayal, but a fundamental clash of belief. Their tension didn't begin with Yellowstone, as many assume. It started decades earlier, during what critics jokingly called Hollywood's Western Civil War. In 1994, two Wyatt Earp films were released within months of each other. Tombstone, gritty and grounded, and Wyatt Earp, a massive studio production led by Costner. Sam never spoke publicly about it, but privately he felt Costner's version symbolized everything he feared. It was too polished, too clean, too careful. When critics described the film as lacking dirt, Sam reportedly laughed and remarked that Hollywood cowboys rode like their clothes were too expensive to wrinkle. That moment created distance, not hostility, just separation. Two men representing two visions of the West, drifting further apart with time. That divide widened dramatically when Yellowstone premiered in 2018. Critics hailed Costner as the man who revived the Western genre. Audiences celebrated the show's scale and drama, but Sam saw something else entirely. To him, Yellowstone felt like a curated fantasy, beautifully shot, perfectly styled, designed for viewers far removed from the realities of ranch life. He once described it as turning the West into a luxury advertisement. Costner later joked publicly about Sam's criticism, earning laughs. Sam didn't respond. What bothered him more were the headlines that followed Costner over the years: scandals, divorces, tabloid drama. Each story reinforced Sam's belief that Costner treated the Western image as a brand rather than a responsibility. When reports surfaced of behind-the-scenes conflicts on Yellowstone, Sam quietly felt validated. To him, cowboys didn't argue over schedules. They worked until the job was done. Benedict Cumberbatch represented a different kind of wound altogether. When The Power of the Dog dominated awards season in 2022, Hollywood praised it as bold and subversive. But when Sam watched it, he felt a deep unease. It wasn't anger, it was sorrow. To him, the film didn't reflect the West he knew. It felt dissected, psychoanalyzed, and reimagined through a lens unfamiliar with its soul. On Mark Maron's podcast, Sam finally allowed those feelings to surface. He criticized the accents, the imagery, and what he described as a false version of Montana. The backlash was immediate. Younger audiences mocked him. Critics dismissed him as outdated. But Sam never believed he was attacking Cumberbatch personally. He was defending authenticity. What few knew was that Sam had already declined a cameo years earlier, refusing to tell the West's story through voices he felt didn't understand it. The controversy followed Sam everywhere. Benedict handled it diplomatically, saying art didn't belong to one man. It was a graceful response, but it stung. At a post-Oscar event, the two men shook hands without speaking. Witnesses described the moment as heavy, uncomfortable, and unresolved. To Sam, Benedict symbolized a new Hollywood, one that reinterpreted tradition rather than preserving it. It wasn't malicious. It was generational, but it hurt all the same. Sam felt like a guardian watching strangers rewrite a language he had spent his life protecting. And yet, even this wasn't the deepest wound. That distinction belonged to Taylor Sheridan. At first, Sam saw Sheridan as hope. Hell or high water impressed him deeply. He even sent Sheridan a handwritten letter praising his understanding of the land and its people. Sam rarely did that, but Yellowstone changed everything. To Sam, it wasn't storytelling, it was empire building. A polished, expensive universe designed for mass consumption. When Sheridan's business dealings became public, including massive deals and personal profit tied to the very stories he wrote, Sam felt something collapse. The West wasn't supposed to be leveraged like that. When 1883 underwent studio-driven changes, Sam felt the grit slowly disappear. He once described it as turning blood into perfume. Sheridan later remarked that Sam had forgotten America had changed. That comment cut deeply. It suggested Sam no longer belonged. Their silent standoff at an awards ceremony in 2022 said everything words never could. Two men starring at different versions of the same country. To Sam, Sheridan wasn't a misunderstanding. He was proof that even authenticity could be monetized beyond recognition. But among all these names, there was one man who left a colder scar than any of them. Mark Maron, not because of ideology or art, but because of exploitation. When Sam appeared on Maron's podcast, he expected conversation. Instead, his honesty became content. The episode went viral, headlines followed, and Maron leaned into it, joking, provoking, mocking. Sam watched quietly as his vulnerability turned into entertainment. When Maron doubled down publicly, Sam felt used. He later said he spoke from the heart while others spoke for attention. That wound didn't fade. Sam never responded publicly. He never fought back. But those closest to him say his silence wasn't strength, it was hurt. Among all the figures who disappointed, angered, or conflicted him, Maron was the only one who turned trust into profit. And that, to Sam, crossed a line no cowboy ever should. Sam Elliott's story isn't about bitterness. It's about grief. About watching a world you love evolve into something unfamiliar. About holding values that no longer trend well. Each disappointment left a mark. Some faded, some didn't. Now we turn the question to you. Which of these men do you think hurt Sam Elliott the most, and why? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more stories about the hidden fractures behind Hollywood's greatest legends, like the video, subscribe and stay with us. There's much more they never wanted you to hear, and this is only the beginning.